Hi everyone, and welcome to another Hate Watchers breakdown and review. If you're new to the channel, our goal here is to let you know if the crap being put out by movie and television studios is worth your time. If the movie or show is a great watch, we'll let you know what they're doing right and make our recommendation for you to go and see it for yourself. But if it's a hate watch, we'll be taking no prisoners as we pick it apart. So, save yourself some time and join us to have a few laughs as we throw the crap right back at them. Please like the video if you like it, and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. Use the chapters below if you want to skip the background on this show and jump straight to the episode recap. And I can't believe we still have to say this in 2022, but spoilers ahead for Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power. Beginning in the early 2000s, fans of the Lord of the Rings novels were treated to 3 epic fantasy movie adaptations. These movies were based on the novels written by J.R.R. Tolkien. I wonder if there's any relation to George R.R. Martin. The R.R. must stand for rest and recovery, because neither of these authors seems too concerned with finishing their writings. But I digress. This film series was at times a jaw-dropping, edge-of-your-seat movie-going experience that was universally beloved. Fans even forgave the fact that the good guys basically just used a cheat code to win toward the end. Riding the coattails of his earlier success, director Peter Jackson next sought to bring The Hobbit to the big screen, looking to stretch one book into another trilogy of films. Let's just say this made fans of Lord of the Rings miss the Lord of the Rings. The pacing in these films made each installment feel like a bloated, lumbering slog, only to culminate in subpar, over-stylized, over-CGI'd action scenes. The movies weren't awful, but they didn't measure up to what fans were accustomed to with the first trilogy. With that brief history on the critical reception of Lord of the Rings media up to this point, let's take a look at the time frame we'll be dealing with in The Rings of Power. The aforementioned Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies all covered events that took place in Middle-earth during the Third Age. This period of 3,021 years began with the first defeat of Sauron at the hands of the last alliance of elves and men, and ended with Gandalf, Elrond, Galadriel, Bilbo, and Frodo departing for the Undying Lands after destroying Sauron once and for all. The Rings of Power is set to take place during the Second Age, 1,000 years before the events fans are familiar with in The Hobbit, according to one of the actors. Of course, the showrunners say it's thousands of years before this time, so we're just off to a phenomenal start in regard to respecting the established lore. Before seeing the first episodes, the best guess we have is that it will take place anywhere between 3,000 and 6,500 years before Lord of the Rings. Not based on any one book, the Rings of Power are completely derived from the unfinished appendices from the Lord of the Rings and sparse bits of in-world history about the Second Age peppered throughout the novels. At this time in Middle-earth, Sauron's former master Morgoth has just been defeated. For those who don't know, Morgoth was basically a fallen god who created all things evil in Middle-earth. Sauron, for all the power and armies we see him commanding, doesn't even come close to the existential threat that was Morgoth. If Morgoth was Mecha Hitler, Sauron was nothing more than a child throwing a tantrum. With Morgoth defeated, Sauron comes out of hiding in Middle-earth and establishes his power base in Mordor. Disguised as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, he befriends the elves and mentors them on how to make the Rings of Power. Ooh, show title. These are the 20 rings referenced in Lord of the Rings. 9 rings for mortal men, 7 for the dwarves, 3 rings for elves that were made unbeknownst to Sauron, and 1 ring made in secret designed to dominate all the others. Or to rule them all, if you prefer it that way. Crafted during the Second Age, these rings presumably do not exist yet at the beginning of the Rings of Power, and the show will all but certainly chronicle their origin. In addition to showing us how these rings came to be and the rise of Sauron, we're also promised to see unlikely heroes rise to meet him. Of course, since this is a prequel series, we already know that they all fail, but whatever. And while all of this is likely the basis for this show's plot, we can't really say with certainty. Hell, if you only watch the trailers, you're probably wondering where all this conjecture came from. And that's because the trailers are nothing but endless exposition, grand cityscapes, and implausible action sequences with so much filtering and CGI that the 2 or 3 minutes all kind of blur together into one golden glow, and you have no idea what you just saw. If you don't do your own digging into the characters you're seeing in the trailer, you have no idea who they are or what to even expect with this show. The trailers gave us nothing but pretty pictures to look at, but lucky for you, we're here to do the research and fill you in on some of the background for this show. So far, we know we'll be meeting the dwarves of Khazad-dûm. Some familiar elves hidden away in their perfect cities, Sauron and his growing forces of Mordor, the peace and loving hippie hobbits known as the Harfoots, and the men of Numenor, whose island kingdom we will see rise and fall during the Second Age. Billed as the main protagonist, the trailers have been dominated by a younger Galadriel who we met in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. No exaggeration, 60% of each trailer proudly focuses on this one character. Far from her depiction in the Fellowship of the Ring as some noble, ethereal elf, these trailers show Galadriel as an ass-kicking girl boss who walks away from explosions in slow motion. She'll be joined by another familiar elf, Elrond, who was played in Lord of the Rings by Agent Smith. Based on the trailer, Elrond's role in this show will just be to tell Galadriel she can't do the thing she then immediately goes and does, so she can smash the patriarchy. We also get a few shots of Sauron disguised as a meth-head tweaker named Anatar, causing general chaos and destruction around Middle-earth. There's also this character named only The Stranger, who arrives to Middle-earth in a meteor. Some have come out and claimed that this character, who looks like a homeless person pulled right off the streets of LA, is supposed to be Gandalf. In all the established lore, Gandalf doesn't come to Middle-earth until the Third Age, so if this rumor is true, I can't wait to hear the backlash from Tolkien scholars on this. And that does it for the characters that are familiar to us from Lord of the Rings. Let's hope these original Tolkien characters serve a real purpose in this show, and aren't just here to pull in existing fans before shifting the focus onto the newly created characters. Gee, where have we seen that before? Speaking of new characters, Amazon made no secret of its desire to bring in a diverse cast, and they did just that. And by diverse cast, Amazon only means being black or female. Apparently, they couldn't be bothered to search out any other group for representation, but alright Amazon, you do you. All of the cast and crew have already done all of the usual interviews and articles preparing for the backlash to the diversity in this show, which is always a good sign when no one's even seen it yet. We are hoping that Amazon took the time to find good actors to play well-written characters, and that they weren't just out there checking boxes, but I think we all know what their main goal is. Fingers crossed that Amazon didn't just make a bunch of Tolkien diversity hires. Tolkien, get it? Now, Amazon isn't taking this show lightly. It remains to be seen what kind of respect they will show the existing lore, but from a financial perspective, they are all in. This is the most expensive show ever produced, with over $1 billion put into the Rings of Power. Anyone who's been paying attention knows this, as we've lived through essentially a 6-month marketing campaign for the show. Amazon has pretty much said that the future of their subsidiary Amazon Studios rests entirely on the success or failure of the Rings of Power. Amazon wants a gritty fantasy show that becomes a cultural phenomenon like Game of Thrones, and expects this show to run for years. Prepare for this series to be a perfect case study on whether or not money alone can produce good storytelling.